Hello, early friends! Today I have a very special video for you. Today I'm going to be going over my number one tip for writing memorable characters, or really, if anything, this is my number one advice for characters overall. Before we go anywhere though, allow me to give you the formal disclaimer and remind you that the following is merely just my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as my particular point of view on this issue. So full disclosure here, okay? I get a lot of questions, and I do mean a lot of writing questions. I mean, like, it's come to the point where I just don't have the time anymore to reply to like 50 plus messages on Tumblr. It's kind of sad, I hate not getting back to people, but I like to group together the questions that are similar and answer them in one video. And I get questions of like, how do I write a good protagonist? How do I write a good antagonist? How do I write a character that readers will relate to or readers will like? And ultimately, I find that a lot of that tends to be related to one thing: making characters that the reader will remember. Or rather, writing memorable characters. And I was digging around, thinking about this and trying to, come up with the one thing. What is the one thing that helped me as a writer? And as I was digging around, I came to one thing that kept resonating with me, and it is one thing that they not only change the way I make characters, but also the way that I plan stories. So what is my number one tip for making characters memorable? What is my number one tip for basically writing better characters overall? Let your characters surprise you. Let your character surprise you. What does that mean? Allow me to explain how I came to this, or rather how I discovered this over the course of writing a lot. Or rather, trying to write, because when I began this journey, I didn't finish stories. I would plan them, I used to be a super detailed outliner. I used to plan everything out. And when I sat down to the act of writing, I would become disillusioned because the story would not turn out like I wanted it to. And I went on like this. I went on this cycle for years. I would start a story, shiny and new, super interesting. I would spend weeks planning everything, and when I sat down to write, nothing would happen. And I would be asking myself, this is not what I want it to be, this is not what I want it to be, this is not what I want it to be, I want out. Oh, another shiny story idea, maybe this one will be the one. I've been saying on my blog and on here for ages, and the thing is this, okay? Most writing problems are actually writer problems. And there came to a point in my life when I was going through a lot of changes and I wanted to finally start finishing stories. I wanted to be an author, I wanted to write, and I wanted to share stories with the world, and I thought, if I can't finish them, that's never gonna happen. So I sat down and I was honest with myself, and I began breaking down the things that were stopping me. The things that were standing in my way, that were my fault, my writer's block. And I realized that one of those things was that I was coming into the story wanting it to be something. But that's not how writing works. Writing is not chemistry or baking. You don't come in with ingredients and a recipe and get a finished end product in one go. Writing is entirely different. Now, I know that some people outline a lot, and that's okay. As I mentioned in the past, everyone can find their own way to go about doing things. That's okay. There's no problem here, but I was looking for my own way. I was finding my own way to create stories, and I realized that coming in, trying to make writing into chemistry, with planning out every phase and knowing what everything would happen and getting things down to the wire, I realized that I was getting in the way of the actual spontaneity of writing. So, you wanna know what I did? I started planning less and less and less and less. Little by little, I began letting go of details. I didn't come into a fantasy world knowing every single continent, knowing every single city, knowing every single culture, knowing the flags of every nation. I came in knowing a couple of things. This kingdom is about this, I think. There came to a point in my outline where every time I would write a fact, I would put a question mark at the end, because maybe it's not. What if it wasn't? Would the story be better if this fact was not actually a fact, was something entirely different? And I began looking at writing as though something chaotic, something that I could not control, and I began stepping aside and becoming less of the active agent and more of someone witnessing the story. And my job became then the act of relaying this chaotic story to the reader. And in this time of my life, I was going through a lot of change, a lot of really scary change. Family changes, friend changes, relationship changes, and I was going through this chaotic mess of telling a story while letting things go crazy and still trying to relay a story, and I found that something magical happened. I would be writing a scene, and in this scene would have one of my characters, or the characters who I thought I had created, and in the act of writing I thought, clearly, this is what's going to happen next. Clearly, this is the way stories go, and the character would do something I could have never expected. This character, who I thought I knew, did something I could have never foreseen, and I realized that the previous Max, the previous version of me who used to outline a lot, would have given up right there. Or would have forced this character to do what that old Max wanted to do. But this newer version of me, the version of me who wanted to finish stories and who wanted their stories to be like real life, because real life has no plot lines. Real life can be chaotic and anything can happen in life. So I thought, much like in real life, I will let this character be a real person. And I will let their life be chaotic. And I will let anything that could happen. And I found this enormous sense of empowerment. I enter the mind of the storyteller, not the orchestrator. I did not create this story. I merely found it. And I will share it with you. And the characters you find are not my puppets, but merely just the people I found, and the people who made choices I could have never foreseen. And that right there, for me, was magic. Because for the longest time, I thought that writing was about orchestrating things and being the puppet master and knowing everything about the world, and I realized that this may not be for everyone. But for me, letting go of control, particularly letting go of your characters, went a long way. Because life itself is not planned. Life itself is not outlined, and anything can happen in life. And sometimes, life can be stranger than fiction, so why shouldn't fiction get to be as strange as life itself? So what does this have to do with characters and with writing and with character advice? And as I've mentioned, one of the things that helped me the most was to let my characters surprise me. I ended up letting go of control. And was it scary? Yeah, it was terrifying. When I first started writing without as much outlining as I, did back then, I was terrified because I had no idea what could happen or what could go on. And every time I sat down was like an adventure. And I learned and I discovered the joy in that. I discovered the joy of thinking, maybe knowing what could possibly happen, but not being sure about it. Kind of like real life. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you should let go of all of your outlining methods or your outlining techniques. I'm not saying that. You can still have those. What I want you to take from this is that whenever you're writing, and you're in the act of writing, and one of your characters says something, or does something, or appears to be doing something that you could have never expected, don't censor them. Don't stop them. Don't tell them that they should be doing something else. Follow them. Let them surprise you, and let them take you to places that you could have never gone there on your own. I'm not saying it's gonna be easy. I'm not saying that it's gonna be anything less than terrifying the first time you start letting go of control. But I found in my experience and, in my history of writing that the characters that stick with the reader, the characters who stay with you for the longest time, are the ones who surprised you. I think that next time you're in the act of writing and one of your characters does something that you could have never expected, follow them. See where they take you. And above all, let them surprise you. I hope that helps. I really do hope that helps, and I hope that if anything, I've given you another point of view to do things. Characters are really special to me. I found that characters are the center of my stories. And I will eventually talk about the Marcy rule, which is one of my biggest and most important writing lessons, probably next video or a video after that. But it's the idea that people think that plotting is about events happening. I don't think so. I think plotting is about characters doing things. And at the core of all story is character. And that's why I like to put characters in the forefront. And I like to always put characters above the outline. And I know it may be terrifying, but in my personal history, it helped me so much. I said more work at the end to, patch over loose ends from the beginning. Yeah, but that's what revision is for, though. I mean, ultimately, I'm out there to tell the best story possible and to write the best characters possible. But yes, I digress. I hope that this helps, and I hope that, again, if anything, I gave you another point of view. Like, subscribe to all of the socially related things. If you have questions of your own or feedback, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll be seeing you soon. Mwah. Hello there, welcome back to Max's Editorial. Today I want to talk about something really quickly, okay? I have limited time, so I want to make this really quick. Whenever I give this piece of advice, let your character surprise you, a couple of writers always yell at me, and they're always like, but I don't want my character to be like X and be like Y, or to do this and that. And my reply to that is always the same, because as I've mentioned, most writing problems are writer's problems. Writer problems, oops. And there are writers who go in and they're like, well, I want my character to do this, because I want the story to be about this, and about that, and about that. And I have to ask the question, whose fault is that then? Is it the story's fault that it's not what you want it to be? Or is it your fault for demanding something else of the story? I know that I may be weird for putting story before everything else, but I have this belief that we don't come up with stories. I think we find them. I think we stumble upon them, and then it is our task to tell those stories. Most of the time when I come into a story, by the time I'm done with it, I realize what it was actually about, because I stopped coming into a story wanting to get something. My joy, what I love about storytelling, is the act of storytelling itself. And I found that by giving the story the liberty to be whatever it wants to be, it ends up becoming a lot richer at the end, because it has all of the potential it wants. All of the characters are free to be whatever they want to be whoever they want to be, and at the end, you end up with something that feels bigger than life, or rather, feels exactly like life, because in life, anything can happen. But yeah, that's how I feel about things. Again, I'm a little bit of a radical. I outline very little. I used to outline a lot. But writing and being a dungeon master or game master taught me that outlining and planning goes basically to hell once you introduce characters into it. But there you go, another strange writing lesson from yours truly. Thank you for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon. Mwah!